The alarms screamed through Kepler Station as the first hollow ships came out of hyperspace. Ambassador Televor grabbed the wall to steady himself as the station shook from impact. He had been assigned to observe human military behavior for 6 months now, and he thought he understood them. They were loud. They were emotional. They made jokes at strange times and played music during battles. He had written 3 reports about their unusual behavior. He was about to learn how wrong he was about everything. Captain Park Do-hun stood on the bridge of his ship, the UESS Horizon, watching the tactical display fill with enemy signatures. 20 hollow vessels. Maybe more coming. The station had 200 human soldiers and 500 Rillian troops. It would not be an easy fight. All hands, battle stations, Do-hun said calmly into his comm. Let's wake up and get to work. The human channel immediately filled with noise. Soldiers shouting confirmations. Someone playing loud rock music. Sergeant Cho Minho's voice cutting through. All right, you beautiful idiots. Time to earn our pay. First squad to 10 kills gets drinks on me. Televor listened to all of this from his position in the command center. The Rillian commander beside him looked annoyed by the noise. Televor found it fascinating. Humans seemed unable to fight without all this chaos. Lieutenant Kim Yuna worked at her tactical station with quick, precise movements. She was quieter than most humans, but she still participated in the chatter. Minho, if your squad beats mine, I'll buy the drinks myself, she said. Now we're talking, Minho laughed. The battle began in full. Hollow boarding pods slammed into the station's outer hull. The creatures poured out tall, dark, moving like shadows with too many limbs. They didn't speak. They didn't make any sound at all. They just killed. The humans met them with bullets and blades and endless noise. Televor followed a squad through the corridors, recording everything. He watched a young human soldier take down 3 hollow while humming a song. He saw another soldier shout encouragement to a wounded Rillian while providing cover fire. The humans were everywhere, loud and fast, and somehow still working together despite all the chaos. This is how they always fight. The Rillian commander told Televor. No discipline. No order. But somehow, it works. Televor nodded, making notes on his datapad. Humans were indeed strange creatures. On the front lines, Minho led his squad through a maintenance corridor. They were pushing the hollow back, making progress toward the enemy landing zone. His soldiers were in good spirits. They had trained for this. They were ready. Then Private Lee Sujin stopped moving. Sergeant, she said quietly. I'm picking up life signs ahead. Lots of them. Small ones. Minho felt something cold settle in his stomach. Define small. Too small to be adults, Sergeant. Any species. She looked at him with wide eyes. I think they have the school. The school. Kepler Station had families. Scientists brought their children. Teachers came to educate them. There was a school with 43 kids from 12 different species. Minho opened a channel to Captain Do-hun. Captain, we have a problem. Report. The Hollow have taken the civilian wing. The school is there. We're reading 40+ child life signs. Surrounded by enemy forces, there was silence on the channel for 3 seconds. To humans, 3 seconds was a very long time. Then Do-hun's voice came back, and it was different. The warmth was gone. Confirmed. All units. New orders. Televor was in the command center when Do-hun's next transmission came through. He would remember it for the rest of his life. All units, go quiet. At first, Televor didn't understand. He waited for more orders, more information. But there was nothing. The human channel went completely silent. The music stopped. The jokes stopped. The chatter, the laughter, the shouting, all of it stopped. Televor checked his equipment. It was working fine. He tried to contact Lieutenant Yuna. No response. He tried to reach Sergeant Minho's squad. Nothing. What's happening? he asked the Rillian commander. Why won't they answer? The commander had gone very still. His scales had turned pale, a sign of fear in his species. I served with humans once before. Years ago. I saw this happen one other time. Thank you for watching. I can tell it in glue. They're not 9, and the most in time. Saw what happened. They went quiet. Like this. Just before they... He stopped and shook his head. Ambassador, I think we should move to a secure location. I don't understand. Why are they not communicating? A Rillian soldier nearby, an older one with scars on his face, spoke up. Because they don't need to anymore. When humans go quiet, they become something else. They stop being individuals. They move like one creature with many bodies. Televor felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. That's not possible. They're not telepathic. No. It's worse than telepathy. It's training, and instinct, and rage, all pressed down, until there's nothing left but purpose. The old soldier checked his weapon. Pray to whatever gods you have, Ambassador. The humans have stopped talking. That means they're about to do something terrible. In the corridors of Kepler Station, the humans moved in silence. Minho led his squad toward the civilian wing. No one spoke. No one needed to. They had trained together for years. They knew each other's movements, each other's thoughts. Hand signals were enough. Sometimes even those weren't necessary. Yuna coordinated the other teams through text-only commands. Her fingers moved across her console without hesitation. She didn't feel calm, she felt everything. The fear and the anger and the desperate need to save those children. But she had pushed it all down into a small, cold place inside her chest. She would feel it later. Right now, there was only the mission. Do-hun walked through his ship toward the airlock. He was going to the station personally. His crew knew better than to try to stop him. The Hollow felt the change before they understood it. The hive mind that connected all Hollow perceived human brain patterns through the station's systems. Before, those patterns had been chaotic emotional spikes, scattered thoughts, unpredictable impulses. Now they were different. Calm, synchronized, cold. For the first time in this battle, the hive mind felt something like concern. It tried to make contact. Human forces, we control your young. Stand down, or they will be. The transmission was interrupted by an explosion as Team 1 breached the Hollow ship's communications array. Televor made his way through the station, trying to find the humans, trying to understand what he was seeing. He found a squad moving through a corridor. They flowed around him like water around a stone. Not one of them looked at him. Not one of them made a sound. He had studied humans for 6 months. He thought he knew them. He didn't know them at all. In the command center, the Rillian commander watched his tactical display with growing unease. Human units were moving in patterns he couldn't predict. They weren't following standard tactics. They weren't following any tactics he recognized. Should we assist them? A Rillian officer asked. No, the commander said quietly. Stay out of their way. At this point, we would only slow them down. But the children, the humans will get the children. That's the only thing I'm certain of right now. He watched the display as human signatures converged on the civilian wing from 3 directions. Whatever else happens tonight, the humans will save those children, and the gods help anything that tries to stop them. Televor found a window that looked out over the station's main corridor. He saw Sergeant Minho's squad breach a door and disappear inside. He saw Captain Do-hun moving alone toward the Hollow command position. He saw humans at war. And he finally understood why other species whispered about them. Why old soldiers got quiet when humans were mentioned. Why the Hollow, a species that had never retreated from any enemy, were starting to pull back. The humans had stopped talking, and the galaxy had learned, again, what that meant. Counselor Brenshaw stood on the bridge of the Council flagship, watching the battle unfold on the tactical display. She had never trusted humans. They were too new to the Council, too emotional, too unpredictable. She had argued against giving them military positions. Now she watched their communication channels go completely dark, and she felt the first touch of real fear. "What are they doing?" she demanded. "Why have they stopped transmitting?" The Gorvathi admiral beside her, a massive creature covered in thick plates of natural armor, let out a low rumble. "They've gone quiet. I can see that. Why? Because children are in danger." The admiral's 4 eyes fixed on the display. "I fought beside humans in the border wars, counselor. I saw this happen once. Only once. And what happened?" The admiral was quiet for a moment. "We won. The enemy did not survive. None of them." He turned one pair of eyes toward her. "I have faced many enemies in my life, counselor. I have never been afraid of humans. But when they go silent like this, I am afraid for anyone who stands against them." 140 point. On the display, human signatures moved through Kepler Station in perfect formation. No communication. No hesitation. Just movement. Brenshaw pulled up classified files on her personal screen. She needed to understand what she was seeing. The first file was from the Martian uprising in 2801. A group of separatists had taken control of a colony and captured hostages. Human forces had been sent to resolve the situation. For 2 days, they negotiated. They talked. They tried to find a peaceful solution. Then the separatists executed a hostage, a child, on a live broadcast. The human forces went quiet. 6 hours later, the uprising was over. Every separatist was dead. Every hostage was recovered. The human soldiers who participated were given mandatory psychological leave for 3 months afterward. The second file was from a border conflict with a species called the Kreth. The Kreth had ambushed a human medical ship and killed everyone aboard. When human forces arrived to respond, they found recordings of what had been done to the doctors and nurses before they died. The humans went quiet. The Kreth no longer existed as a spacefaring species. Brenshaw closed the files. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Counselor," one of her aides said. "Should we send reinforcements to assist the humans?" "No," the Gorvathi admiral said firmly. "We would only be in the way, and some of us might not come back." Inside Kepler Station, Lieutenant Kim Yuna coordinated the assault from her tactical station. Her fingers moved constantly, sending text commands to every team. She didn't need to speak. She didn't want to speak. Words would mean feelings, and feelings would slow her down. She could feel everything pressing against the walls she had built in her mind. Fear for the children. Rage at the hollow. Worry for her friends on the front lines. She held it all back through sheer will. Later, she would let it out. Later, she would cry and shake and need to be held. That was the price of going quiet. You had to feel everything eventually. But not now. Now there was only the mission. She tracked Sergeant Minho's squad as they approached the civilian wing. Team 2 was in position. Team 3 was moving to cut off hollow retreat routes. Captain Dohan was heading for the enemy command cluster alone. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Telavor had decided to follow Team 2. He kept his distance, recording everything. He watched the humans move through the corridors like ghosts, silent, fast, deadly. He had studied many species in his career. He had seen warriors from a dozen worlds, but he had never seen anything like this. The humans weren't fighting with rage. That was what surprised him. He had expected anger. He had expected fury and hate and the desire for revenge. Instead, he saw nothing. Their faces were blank. Their movements were calm. They killed hollow soldiers with the same emotion that a machine would show. It should have been reassuring. It wasn't. A normal enemy, an angry enemy, would make mistakes. They would overreach. They would let their emotions create openings. These humans had no openings. They had pushed down every emotion until nothing remained but cold, perfect efficiency. Minho's squad reached the door to the civilian wing. Beyond it were 43 children and an unknown number of hollow guards. Minho held up his hand. His squad stopped instantly. He looked at each of them. Private Lee Sujin, Corporal Baek Jiwon, Sergeant Han Unji. He had served with them for years. He trusted them completely. No words were needed. A few hand signals communicated the plan. Breach and clear. Protect the children at all costs. Weapons free on any hostile. Sujin set the charge. Jiwon took position on the left. Unji covered the right. Minho counted down on his fingers. 3, 2, 1. The door exploded inward. The next 40 seconds were a blur of violence that Televor would struggle to describe in his report. He saw Minho enter first, firing before he was fully through the doorway. He saw hollow soldiers fall 1, 2, 3, in quick succession. The children were huddled in a corner, guarded by a circle of hollow warriors. The creatures turned toward the breach, limbs raised to strike. They never got the chance. The humans flowed through the room like water. Every shot was precise. Every movement was necessary. There was no wasted effort, no hesitation, no mercy. 9 hollow soldiers died in 40 seconds. Not one human was injured. Not one child was touched. When it was over, Minho moved to the children. He knelt down in front of them, and for just a moment, something broke through his cold exterior. His eyes were gentle. He still didn't speak, but he held out his hand. A small Rillian child, couldn't have been more than 5 years old, took it. Minho nodded to his squad. Sujin and Jiwon formed a protective circle around the children. Unji checked for other entrances. The mission wasn't over yet. Across the station, the hollow hive mind was beginning to panic. It had fought many species. It had conquered worlds. But it had never encountered anything like this. The humans had changed. Their brain patterns were no longer chaotic. They had become synchronized not through telepathy, but through something deeper. Training, trust, shared purpose. They moved as one creature. The hive mind tried again to make contact. Human forces, we will withdraw. We will release all hostages. Cease your attack. No response. We offer surrender. Full surrender. Please respond. Nothing. The hive mind understood, finally, that the humans were not going to stop. They were not going to accept surrender. They were not going to show mercy. It sent new orders to its forces. Retreat. Full retreat. Disengage from human forces at all costs. But it was too late. Lieutenant Yuna's Team 1 had already disabled the hollow ship's engines. There would be no escape. Televor emerged from the civilian wing with the children and their human protectors. He saw a young Rillian medic waiting for them. Are they injured? The medic asked. Minho shook his head once. The children were safe. And the humans? The medic looked at the soldiers. Are you injured? Another head shake. But Televor could see the cost in their eyes. The humans were not injured in their bodies, but something in them had been strained to its limit. He would write about this in his report. The humans had not become machines. They were still feeling everything, the fear, the anger, the desperate need to protect the innocent. They had simply locked it away, and when this was over, they would have to let it out. The medic seemed to understand. He nodded and took charge of the children, leading them to safety. Minho turned to his squad. He pointed toward the command center. The mission wasn't complete. The hollow command cluster was still active. Captain Do-hoon was handling that personally, but there was other work to do. Other hollow to find. The station. 2. Secure. Minho moved out without a word. His squad followed. Televor watched them go. He was beginning to understand something important about humans. They were not dangerous because of their anger. They were not dangerous because of their emotions. They were dangerous because they could control those things when they needed to. They could take everything that made them human, the love, the fear, the rage, and lock it away until the job was done. And then they could still choose to show mercy. He had seen Minho's eyes when he looked at those children. He had seen the gentleness there. Despite everything, the humans had gone quiet, but they had not lost themselves. That was what made them truly frightening. That was what made them truly human. On the bridge of the Council flagship, Brenshaw watched the tactical display as the hollow retreat turned into a rout. Human forces were everywhere, cutting off escape routes, capturing enemy soldiers, securing the station, piece by piece. "They're magnificent," the Gorvathi admiral said quietly. "And terrifying." Brenshaw didn't respond. She was already thinking about her report to the Council. Humanity needed to be watched. Not because they were dangerous, because they were dangerous and good at the same time. And she wasn't sure the Council was ready for that. The children were safe. The civilian wing was secure. And now the humans shifted from defense to offense. Captain Park Do-hun moved through the station alone. His crew had wanted to send a security team with him. He had refused with a single look. There were things he needed to do himself. Things he didn't want his people to see. He was still quiet, still cold. The mission wasn't over yet. Behind him, his forces spread across Kepler Station like a wave. They were no longer defending. They were hunting. Lieutenant Kim Yuna coordinated everything from her tactical station. She watched the display as human teams cut off every hollow escape route. The enemy ships were disabled. The enemy soldiers were trapped. There was nowhere to run. She sent commands to each team through text. Short, simple, clear. Team 1. Secure docking bay. No escape. Team 2. Clear decks 5 through 8. Capture if possible. Team 3. Support Captain Do-hun. Stand by for orders. Her hands moved without stopping. Her face showed nothing. But inside, she was counting the minutes until this was over. Until she could be human again. Sergeant Cho Min-ho led Team 2 through the station's middle decks. His squad was tired. They had been fighting for hours, but they didn't slow down. They didn't complain. They didn't speak. Min-ho thought about the children they had saved. 43 kids from 12 species. He thought about the small Rillian who had taken his hand. He thought about what the Hollow would have done to those children if his team had been slower. If they had made mistakes. He pushed the thoughts away. Not now. Later. His squad reached a junction. Motion sensors showed hollow life signs ahead. 6. Maybe 7. Minho signaled his team to spread out. They moved in. The hollow were waiting. They had set up a defensive position, overturned equipment, blocked corridors, overlapping fields of fire. It was a good position. Smart. It didn't matter. Minho's team hit them from 3 angles at once. Corporal Baek Ji-won drew their fire from the front. Private Lee Soo-jin flanked left. Sergeant Han Eun-ji came in from above, through a maintenance hatch. The fight lasted 12 seconds. When it was over, Minho's squad secured the area and kept moving. More enemy to find. But at the next junction, they found something unexpected. A cluster of hollow, maybe 10 of them, huddled in a storage room. They were wounded. Some, badly. Their bioluminescent patterns were dim, flickering a sign of injury and fear in their species. Minho's squad stopped. They looked at their sergeant. These hollow were not fighters. They were support crew. Technicians. Maybe even medics. They had no weapons raised. They showed no aggression. Minho looked at them for a long moment. He could kill them. It would be easy. His squad would follow his lead without question. And after what the Hollow had done, taking children hostage, threatening innocents, no one would blame him. But that wasn't who he was. That wasn't who any of them were. He made a decision. His hands moved in quick signals. Secure them. Don't kill. Move out. His squad obeyed instantly. Ji-won and Yoon-ji covered the Hollow, while Soo-jin used restraints. The creatures didn't resist. They seemed confused. Maybe they had expected death. Televor was there, watching, recording. He had followed Team 2 through the entire assault. He had seen the humans kill without mercy. Now he saw them show mercy without weakness. He added this to his report. It was important. Maybe the most important thing he would write. On the Council flagship, Councillor Bren Shah received reports from across the battle. The Hollow fleet was disabled. The Hollow ground forces were being captured or killed. The station was nearly secure. How are they doing this? She asked the Gorvathi admiral. They have no communication. How are they coordinating? They don't need communication, the admiral said. They trained for this. They know what each other will do before they do it. When humans go quiet, they become... He paused, searching for the right word. They become one thing. Many bodies. One purpose. That's not possible. No. It should not be possible. And yet, he gestured at the display. Look at them. Brenshaw looked. She saw human units moving in perfect formation without a single transmitted order. She saw them anticipate enemy movements before they happened. She saw them flow through the station like they had rehearsed every step. What do we do? She asked quietly. How do we help them? We don't, the admiral said. We stay out of their way. We prepare medical support for afterward. And we thank whatever gods we have that they are on our side. Across the galaxy, on a dozen worlds, other species were monitoring the battle. Most didn't understand what they were seeing. Humans were known for being loud and chaotic. This silent, coordinated assault didn't match the stories. But the older species understood. The ones who had fought beside humans before. The ones who had seen this happen. They watched in silence and remembered. The hollow hive mind was dying. It could feel its forces being destroyed across the station. It could feel the connections breaking one by one as soldiers fell. It tried to coordinate a defense. But there was nothing left to coordinate. The humans were everywhere. The hive mind sent out one final message to its remaining forces. Abandon position. Scatter. Survive. If you can. But there was nowhere to go. The humans had blocked every exit, every docking bay, every escape pod, every maintenance hatch. The trap was complete. In the command cluster, the hollow commander prepared for the end. It was a massive creature, 3 meters tall, covered in armored plates, evolved for combat over 1,000 generations. It had never lost a fight. It was going to lose this one. It could feel the human approaching, just one, moving through the corridors alone. The commander didn't understand. Why send one human? Why not a whole squad? Was this arrogance? Stupidity? Or was it something else? Captain Dohun reached the command cluster and stopped outside the door. He knew what was waiting for him. He had studied holobiology. He knew how dangerous their commanders were. He didn't care. He opened the door and walked in. The hollow commander stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the bodies of its guards. Team 3 had cleared them out. Now it was just the two of them. The commander spoke first. Its voice was strange, multiple tones layered over each other. The sound of a hive mind trying to use a single mouth. One human. To face me alone. Dohun didn't respond. Your people have won. The station is yours. Why continue? Why come here yourself? Dohun looked at the creature. He thought about the children. He thought about what would have happened if his people had been slower. If they had failed. He thought about what he was going to do next. You took children, he said. His voice was quiet, flat. You threatened children. They were leverage. A military strategy. Surely you understand. No. The word hung in the air between them. There are rules, Dohun said. We are at war. There are no rules in war. Yes, there are. Dohun stepped forward. And you broke them. The hollow commander moved first. It was fast. Faster than anything that size should be. Its limbs struck out like blades, aimed at Dohun's throat, his chest, His legs. Do-hun moved faster. He had been training since he was 6 years old. He had fought in 3 wars. He had survived things that should have killed him a dozen times over, and he was quiet now. Cold, precise. He slipped past the first strike, deflected the second, used the creature's momentum against it, and put it on the ground. The commander came up swinging. Do-hun broke its arm. It tried to rise. He broke its leg. It crawled toward him, still trying to fight, because that was all it knew how to do. Do-hun stood over it and waited. "Why?" the commander asked. "Why are you like this? You feel nothing?" Do-hun looked down at it. "We feel everything," he said. The commander didn't understand. It never would. Do-hun finished it quickly. There was no pleasure in it, no satisfaction, just necessity. When it was done, he stood alone in the command cluster, surrounded by silence. The battle was over. The humans had won. And now came the hard part. Across Kepler Station, humans began to speak again. At first, it was quiet, single words, short sentences. Then, more. Voices filling the silence that had lasted for hours. Minho sat against a wall, hands shaking. The adrenaline was fading. The walls he had built in his mind were crumbling. Everything he had pushed down was coming back up. Yuna found him there. "You good?" she asked. "No," he said honestly. She sat down beside him. Neither of them spoke for a while. That was okay. They would talk later. They would feel everything later. Right now, it was enough to just sit with someone who understood. Televor walked through the station, recording the aftermath. He saw humans crying. He saw them hugging each other. He saw them laughing through tears. They were loud again, messy, emotional. They were human again. He understood now why going quiet cost them so much. It wasn't natural for them. It was a violation of everything they were. They did it because they had to. Because it was the only way to save those children. And when it was over, they had to put themselves back together piece by piece. He added this to his report. The council needed to understand. The humans had not become monsters. They had become something much more frightening. They had become perfect. And then they had chosen to stop. The council flagship docked with Kepler Station 3 hours after the last Hollow soldier was captured. Councillor Bren Shaw came aboard personally. She needed to see this for herself. The station was damaged but functional. Repair crews were already working on the outer hull. Medical teams were treating the wounded. Everything was returning to normal, except for the humans. Bren Shaw found them gathered in one of the cargo bays. Someone had brought in chairs and tables. Someone else had found food and drinks. The humans sat together, in small groups, talking quietly. Some of them were crying. Bren Shaw had never seen human soldiers cry before. She had always thought of them as loud and aggressive, too confident for their own good. This was different. She saw Sergeant Minho sitting with his squad. His hands were wrapped around a cup of something warm, and they were still shaking slightly. Private Sujin sat beside him, her head on his shoulder. No one was speaking. She saw Lieutenant Yuna standing apart from the others, staring at a viewport. Her face was wet with tears, but she made no sound. She saw Captain Do-hun sitting alone. That was the one she approached. "Captain." Do-hun looked up. His eyes were tired. Not physically tired, something deeper than that. "Counselor." "No. May I sit?" He gestured to the chair across from him. She sat. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Brenshaw wasn't sure how to begin. She had prepared questions, but they all seemed wrong now. "I've read the reports," she said finally. "Your people performed. Remarkably. We did what we had to do. You did more than that. You saved 43 children. You defeated an enemy force that outnumbered you. You took minimal casualties." She paused. "And you did it all in complete silence." Do-hun didn't respond. "I need to understand," Brenshaw said. "I need to understand what I saw today. What your people did. How they did it. She leaned forward. I need to understand the cost. Do-hun was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. Do you know why we go quiet, counselor? I've read theories. Training. Discipline. A way to enhance coordination. No. He shook his head. We go quiet. Because if we didn't, we would lose ourselves. I don't understand. Do-hun looked at her. His eyes were dark, and there was something old in them. Something that had seen too much. When those children were taken, he said, every soldier under my command felt the same thing. Rage. Fear. The desperate need to save them. Those feelings, they're powerful. They can make you strong. But they can also make you sloppy. They can make you hesitate. They can make you miss a shot. Or take a risk that gets someone killed. He paused. So we push it down. All of it. The fear. The anger. The love. We lock it away until there's nothing left but the mission. We become cold. Precise. Perfect. And that's what I saw today. Yes. But your people, they're not cold now. They're... She gestured at the cargo bay. At the crying soldiers and the quiet groups and the shaking hands. No, we're not cold now. Do-hun's voice was soft. That's the price, counselor. When the mission is over, when we stop being quiet, everything comes back. All at once. The fear. The rage. Everything we couldn't let ourselves feel. He looked down at his hands. They were steady. But Bren Shah could see the tension in them. Some of my people will have nightmares for weeks. Some of them will need therapy. Some of them... He stopped. The cost is real. We don't do this lightly. Bren Shah sat with that for a moment. She thought about what she had seen today. The silent, perfect soldiers moving through the station. And now this, the same soldiers, broken and raw, and putting themselves back together. You could have lost yourself, she said. You could have become monsters. What stopped you? Choice. Choice? Do-hun nodded. Sergeant Minho's squad found wounded hollow. Non-combatants. They could have killed them. It would have been easy. No one would have blamed them. But they didn't. No. They secured them. Took them prisoner. He met her eyes. That's the trick, counselor. We turn off everything so we can hold on to the one thing that matters. The choice. The ability to decide what kind of people we're going to be. Bren Shah felt something shift in her understanding of humans. She had thought of them as dangerous, unpredictable. She hadn't been wrong, but she hadn't been right either. You're not weapons, she said slowly. No. You're soldiers who choose not to become weapons. Yes, she nodded. I think I understand now. Across the cargo bay, Ambassador Televor was conducting interviews. He needed more information for his report. He needed to understand this from as many angles as possible. He approached Private Lee Sujin. She was young, maybe 22. Earth years. Her eyes were red from crying, but she met his gaze steadily. May I ask you some questions? He said. Yes. What was it like? Going quiet? She thought about it. Cold. Empty. Like someone scooped out everything inside me and left just the training. She paused. I could still think. I could still see and hear and make decisions. But I couldn't feel anything. It was like watching myself from far away. Were you afraid? Not then. I am now. She looked down at her hands. I keep thinking about the things I did. The hollow I killed. When I was quiet, it was just necessary. Now I can feel it. The weight of it. Do you regret going quiet? She shook her head. No. Those children are alive because we did what we did. I would do it again. A pause. I just need some time to put myself back together. Televor thanked her and moved on. He found Sergeant Minho still sitting with his squad. Sergeant, may I speak with you? Minho looked up. His hands had stopped shaking, but his face was tired. Ambassador, I saw what you did in the civilian wing. And afterward, with the wounded hollow. You spared them. Yes. Why? Minho was quiet for a moment. Because I could. I don't understand. When we go quiet, we lose a lot of things. Emotions. Instincts. The noise in our heads that makes us human. He looked at Televor. But we don't lose our judgment. We don't lose our ability to choose. Those Hollow weren't fighters. They weren't a threat. Killing them wouldn't have helped the mission. Some would argue they deserved it, after what their people did. Maybe. But that's not my call to make. I'm a soldier, not a judge. Minho's jaw tightened. And I won't become something I hate, just because the enemy is hateful. Televor nodded slowly. I think I understand. Do you? Your people go quiet to become more effective. But you also go quiet to become less dangerous. To control yourselves, instead of being controlled by your emotions. Minho looked at him for a long moment. Then he smiled, small and tired, but real. Yeah, he said. That's about right. Lieutenant Yuna was still at the viewport when Captain Do-hun found her. She hadn't moved in over an hour. Yuna. She didn't turn around. Captain, how are you doing? Processing. Her voice was flat. I'll be fine. I know you will. He stood beside her, looking out at the stars. But you don't have to be fine right now. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I can still feel it. The quiet. Like a room in my head that I can't quite close. She touched the viewport with her fingertips. Part of me wants to go back there. It's easier. No fear. No pain. I know. Is that normal? Yes. Do-hun had felt it too. The cold, quiet place. The temptation to stay there forever. But that's not where we live. We live out here, with all the noise and mess and feelings. I know. She took a breath. I know. They stood together in silence for a while. Not the cold silence of combat. Just the comfortable quiet of two people who didn't need words. Then Yuna spoke again. The children are safe. Yes. All. 43 of them. Yes. That's worth it. Whatever it cost, that's worth it. Do-hun nodded. Yes, it is. She finally turned away from the viewport. Her eyes were still red, but there was something stronger in them now. What happens next? She asked. Debriefings. Reports. Probably some kind of council review. Do-hun shrugged. The usual. And after that, we rest. We recover. We get ready for the next time. You think there will be a next time? He looked at her. There's always a next time. That's why we train. That's why we prepare. He put his hand on her shoulder. And that's why we take care of each other afterward. She nodded. I'm going to go sit with the others. Good. She walked away. Do-hun watched her go. He stayed at the viewport for a while longer, looking out at the stars. He thought about the battle, the children, the Hollow Commander, dying at his feet. He thought about the cost. Then he turned and went to join his people. They would heal. They would recover. They would be ready for whatever came next. That was what humans did. That was who they were. And the galaxy was just beginning to understand that. 3 months after the Battle of Kepler Station, Ambassador Televor stood before the full Galactic Council. 12 species, hundreds of representatives, the most powerful governing body in known space. They were all watching him. Honored counselors, he began. I have spent the past 90 days analyzing the events at Kepler Station. I have reviewed combat recordings, conducted interviews with human and Rillian personnel, and consulted with military experts from 6 species. I am now prepared to present my findings. He activated the display behind him. Footage from the battle began to play the humans fighting, shouting, playing their strange, loud music. Then, the moment when it all stopped. The silence. At 1847 station time, human forces received information that children had been taken hostage by enemy forces. At 1850, Captain Park Do-hun issued a command. All units, go quiet. What you are seeing now is what happened next. The display showed human units moving in perfect coordination. No communication. No hesitation. Just silent, deadly efficiency. In the 3 hours that followed, human forces rescued all 43 hostages, disabled all enemy vessels, and neutralized the hollow command structure. They suffered 4 wounded, none killed. Enemy casualties were 96 killed and 44 captured. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Those numbers were extraordinary. I have identified this behavior pattern in 17 previous engagements involving human forces. In each case, the trigger was the same: a threat to civilians, especially children. In each case, the result was similar: a dramatic shift in human combat effectiveness, followed by swift and overwhelming victory. He paused to let that sink in. The phenomenon appears to be a voluntary psychological state. Humans describe it as going quiet. During this state, they suppress emotional responses and operate on what they call training and instinct. They become, in effect, a single, coordinated organism. Ambassador, Counselor Brenshaw leaned forward. You say this is voluntary. Can they be forced into this state? No, Counselor. The triggers appear to be specific and personal. The data suggests that humans will only go quiet when something they care deeply about is threatened. He met her eyes. This is not a weapon that can be aimed. It is a response to protect what they love. More murmurs. Some of the counselors looked uncomfortable. Others looked thoughtful. A Gorvathi representative spoke up. You said there is a cost. What is it? Significant psychological strain. Humans who experience this state report emotional after-effects lasting days to weeks. Many require professional mental health support. Some develop long-term trauma responses. Televor pulled up another display. Medical reports, therapy records, personal accounts. They do not do this lightly. They know what it costs them. Then why do it at all? Another counselor asked. Because the alternative is worse. Televor turned to face the full chamber. I asked this question many times during my research. The answer was always the same. They go quiet, so they don't lose control. They suppress their emotions, so those emotions don't lead them to make mistakes. They become cold, so they can remain precise. He paused. And they do it so they can hold on to their ability to choose. During the battle, Sergeant Cho Minho's squad encountered wounded enemy non-combatants. They had every reason to kill them. They chose not to. They took them prisoner instead. Silence in the chamber. The humans did not become monsters, Televor said. They became something more controlled than that. And then, when the battle was over, they chose to become human again. He let that sit for a moment. Then he continued. Based on my findings, I have a recommendation for the Council. Proceed, said the Council Prime. I recommend the establishment of a formal alert system. When human forces go quiet during combat, defined as a drop in communication below 10% of baseline, all Allied forces should be notified immediately. To what end? Brenshaw asked. 3 purposes. First, to ensure Allied forces understand that the tactical situation has escalated significantly. Second, to allow non-human units to adjust their operations accordingly. In most cases, this will mean standing back and providing support rather than attempting direct coordination. Third, to ensure that psychological support teams are prepared for the aftermath. You want us to create an alert for when humans stop talking, one counselor said skeptically. Yes. Because when humans stop talking, the galaxy needs to pay attention. The debate went on for 2 hours. Some counselors argued that this made humans sound like weapons, not allies. Others pointed out that it could be seen as discriminatory, singling out one species for special treatment. But in the end, the vote passed. The Gorvathi admiral who had watched the battle spoke in favor. Counselor Bren Shah, who had once distrusted humans, cast the deciding vote. They go quiet so they don't become weapons, she said. The least we can do is recognize the sacrifice that requires. The protocol was established. They called it Code Silent Earth. When human communication dropped below 10% during active combat, the alert would trigger. All Allied forces would be notified. Support teams would be prepared. And the galaxy would know that something had pushed the humans past their limits. 6 months later, a border skirmish broke out with a species called the Thresh. They were new to this region of space, aggressive, territorial, and confident. They had heard stories about humans but didn't believe them. They attacked a joint patrol, 3 human ships, and 2 Valith vessels. At first, the battle was normal. The humans communicated constantly. They shouted orders and warnings. They made jokes over open channels. The Thresh commander listened to their transmissions and felt confident. These humans were chaotic, undisciplined. They would be easy to defeat. Then one of the Thresh ships targeted an escape pod from a disabled Valith vessel. The pod was carrying wounded crew, medical evacuees. The humans saw it happen. On the Valith flagship, a young ensign named Kira was monitoring human communications. She had been in the service for only 8 months. She had never worked with humans before. She watched as the human channel went silent. Her display showed the alert. Code Silent Earth active. Commander, she said, her voice slightly unsteady. I'm reading a Silent Earth. The Valith commander, an older officer who had served for 30 years, nodded slowly. Understood. Pull our forces back to support positions. Contact medical teams and tell them to prepare for human casualties, psychological, not physical. Sir? Kira looked at the display. The human ships were moving into attack formation. Their movements were different now, precise, coordinated, synchronized. What are they going to do? Openness 9. Well, 7 noon. The commander watched as the human vessels began their assault. Whatever they have to, he said. On the UESS Horizon, Captain Park Do-hun sat in his command chair. 6 months ago, he had led his people through the hell of Kepler Station. He had hoped he wouldn't have to do this again so soon. But the Thresh had attacked medical evacuees. They had crossed the line. He opened a channel to his crew. His voice was quiet. Calm. You know what to do. Make it count. Come back to me. Then he closed the channel, and the silence began. Across his ship, across the other 2 human vessels, soldiers and crew members fell quiet. Conversations stopped. Music stopped. Everything stopped. They felt the cold settle into their minds. They felt their emotions drain away. They felt themselves become something precise and deadly and necessary. They didn't like it. They never liked it. But they did it anyway. Because there were wounded in that escape pod. Because someone needed to protect them. Because that was what humans did. The Thresh commander saw the human ships coming. He saw their movements perfect, coordinated, inhuman. He tried to contact them. No response. He tried to threaten them. No response. He tried to surrender. No response. Then the humans reached his fleet, and he understood why the galaxy had learned to fear the silence. On the Valith flagship, Ensign Kira watched the battle unfold. She had never seen anything like it. The human ships moved as one unit, striking from multiple angles at once. The Thresh fleet crumbled in minutes. How are they doing that? She asked. They're not communicating at all. They don't need to, the commander said. When humans go quiet, they become something else. They stop being individuals and start being... He paused. I don't know what to call it. A force. A purpose. A single will in many bodies. That's terrifying. Yes. The commander nodded. And also, beautiful. And also sad. Sad, because of what it costs them. He looked at her. Those humans will save the people in that escape pod. And then they'll spend weeks putting themselves back together. They know this. They do it anyway. Kira was quiet for a moment. Why? Because that's who they are. The battle ended in 11 minutes. The Thresh fleet was disabled. The escape pod was recovered. The wounded Valeth crew members were safe. On the horizon, Captain Do-hun sat in his chair, as the silence faded and his crew began to speak again. He could hear them around him, quiet at first, then louder. Someone laughing. Someone crying. Someone swearing creatively about the Thresh and their ancestors. They were human again. He closed his eyes for a moment. He felt the weight of what they had done. He felt the cold place in his mind, slowly warming again. It would take time. It always did. But they would heal, they would recover, and they would be ready for the next time. Because there was always a next time. He opened his eyes and stood up. His crew looked at him. "Good work," he said. His voice was rough. "Get some rest. Mandatory debriefing at 0800. And someone tell medical, we're going to need the usual support teams." His crew nodded. They understood. Do-hun left the bridge and walked to his quarters. He needed a few minutes alone before he could face anyone else. He thought about Kepler Station. He thought about the children they had saved. He thought about the Valeth crew members they had just rescued. He thought about the cost. And he knew, without any doubt, that he would pay it again. Every time. For as long as he had to. That was what it meant to be human. That was why the galaxy had learned to fear the silence. And that was why, when humans went quiet, the Council sent out an alert. Not because humans were dangerous, but because when humans went quiet, it meant something mattered enough to them that they were willing to sacrifice themselves to protect it. And that more than any weapon, more than any ship, more than any army, was the most powerful thing in the galaxy.